Power users aren't just heavy users, they can be your most valuable source of insight, advocacy, and influence, but how do you spot them and actually do something about it? Kate, how are you?
I'm really good.
We've got something to talk about today. We're talking about power users, what makes them worth paying attention to for B2B SaaS owners.
I think it's a good question, and I think in lots of ways it's very obvious, but it's amazing how you actually don't follow through on the obvious. So of course, these are the ones that are consistently engaging with your product. They'll find out about the new features and then they'll actually use the new features, which is very nice. You'll often find that they'll actually be influencing people around them and they don't even realize. So in a way, I think that sort of audience that it's kind of easy to ignore them because they're just actually so great to deal with that you go, I don't need to worry about them. So you have to be careful, I think, about them not being forgotten, because that does happen with people who use your product well.
Yeah, it's like the good friend or the family member that you take for granted, that they're never going to go anywhere, right? That kind of thing. So when we're talking about power users, we're talking B2B SaaS companies, power users. Is it just about usage? Is it how often they log in? I think what you were saying there, you mentioned something about influence. It's also a bit more on the impact side of things. What are they doing for you? And how are you enabling that? I guess that's a bit of a question too.
It's about actually learning to spot these guys. And so typically people will just randomly say, oh, such and such is great. They talk to us and they say nice stuff. So you can get a bit random about it. If you've got a tool, so like if you've got a coil, you'd actually be able to spot the ones that are scoring really well. Have got the sustained engagement over the weeks, got the feature depth, they're using all your product. And in terms of the account influence, when you're actually looking at the users in the account, you can see that potentially you can start to do a bit of work looking at what teams they're working in and where they're operating and where they're influencing in the organisation. So they can play an influencing role and you can help organise that if you actually focus on them a bit.
Yeah. Something we've talked about a few times recently is that influence across an organization, not just at a user level, is actually how is a company using your product. And if you have these champions that are sort of crafting and shaping how others around them do it too, that's really helpful. I'll just wrap this little bit up with power users. I guess one way to define them is like as an internal champion. We sometimes have seen them in disguise, right? We've had conversations with our own customers who have lost accounts because they didn't know who they were. Spotting your power users, spotting your champions is actually really important, and it's rewarding if you can turn that knowledge around and help them out.
Help them to look good in their organization.
That's right. Let them be the heroes, right?